So, when we extend the sequence, we do not have to do anything special. When we break a sequence and we start a new sequence, then all we have to do is you check whether the currently the sequence that you just saw was longer than the previously known longest sequence. If that is the case, then the sequence that just ended is becoming the longest sequence we have seen so far. Otherwise, you maintain the max length. Okay. Just forget about the currently stopped sequence. Now, there is so that is this loop, and at the end we have to do a slight tricky logic. It could so happen that the sequence ends with the longest increasing subsequence. In that case, we will never reset the max length. So, if the last sequence is the longest, you also have to handle the case separately. Okay. So, we will see an example where if you exit out of the loop, that is, you have already seen a -1, you just have to check whether the last increasing sequence that you saw was in fact the longest. So, there is a small if block at the end to do that. In this part, we will just see a small tracing of this program on a sample input, so that the logic of the program becomes slightly more clear. Okay. So, I have picked a particular input 3, 2, 1, 3, 5, -1, okay, and you will see that the longest increasing sequences are 3. So, the increasing sequences are 3, then 2, then 1, 3, 5. Okay. So, 1, 3, 5 is going to be the longest increasing subsequence, and let us see how our program will find that out. Okay. So, initially you have a bunch of variables which you declare. So, length is 0, max length is 0, and previous and current are undefined. Then you first read previous. So, previous becomes 3, it is not -1. So, you enter the if condition, at which point you set length and max length to 1. Now, you scan the current number. So, current becomes 2. So, remember that previous is now 3 and current is 2. Okay. So, current is not -1, therefore, you enter the while loop. Previous is less than current is false, because previous is 3 and current is 2. Therefore, you enter the else part. Max length less than length is false, both are 1. Therefore, you start a new sequence with length equal to 1. Okay. Now, you continue the loop with previous becoming current. So, previous is now 2 and current you read the next number, which is 1. Okay. So, previous and current have both moved one step. So, current is not -1, previous less than current is again false, because 2 is greater than 1. So, you enter the else part. Max length and length, there is no change. So, you reset the length to 1. Previous is current, so previous becomes 1, and you scan the next number, which is 3. Okay. Now, at this point previous is 1 and current is 3. So, the if condition is true. So, you extend the length increases by 1. Okay. Again you advance previous and current. So, previous becomes 3, current becomes 5. Okay. Again 3 is less than 5. So, increase the length, we are extending the sequence. So, the length becomes 3. Advance, so previous becomes 5 and current becomes -1. At this point you exit the loop. Okay. And now you encounter the situation that max length, which is the length that we have seen so far, recall that it is 1. Okay. But the length of the sequence that we just stopped the input width is 3. Okay, that happened because the longest increasing contiguous subsequence was at the end of the input. Okay. So it happened right at the end. So when we exit the loop, we have to do one additional check. Okay, we can't simply say that the maximum length that we have seen in the sequence is 1, because max length is the length of the longest sequence we have seen before the current one, and the current one was the one that we just stopped with. It had a length of 3. So we just check if max length equal to length is less than the length, then you set max length to be the length. Okay. So once you do that, max length becomes 3. Okay. This is just to handle the case when the longest increasing subsequence is the last. Okay. Now you can exit out of the if condition and then print that the maximum length that you have seen is 3.